Another amazing week of NFL action is in the books. And obviously, the centerpiece of Week 7 was that game between Seattle and Arizona. I don't know what it is about these two teams. They all, for the last few seasons, they always seem to have some sort of classic, some sort of crazy game. Like remember, it was 4 years ago they had that 6-6 game, which I thought was just fantastic. And it's this past Sunday, they went to overtime again, but the score was a bit more respectable. But in the end, there was a winner this time. There wasn't a missed field goal, but there was a winner this time, and it was Arizona who pulled it out with 15 seconds left in overtime. And who caused this loss for Seattle? As usual, Russell Wilson. He threw 3 interceptions, including one that was almost a pick six, but was prevented by DK Metcalf making a great tackle. And the third one was in overtime that led to the game-winning field goal. Amazing. You can always depend on Russell Wilson to just blow it. He always does. And the worst part is, he choked like this on his wife's birthday. Poor Sierra. There's still time for that girl to get with a real quarterback. Rodgers is still single. So is Garoppolo. But, and anyway, that game, and the thing is, Arizona never led that game. 69 minutes and 45 seconds of play, and they never led until the end, when it mattered. And that game, interestingly enough, that game wasn't supposed to be on national television because it was supposed to be the Buccaneers and the Raiders on that NBC slot, but they moved it up to an earlier slot because I heard there were COVID concerns. There were COVID concerns in that team, but they weren't bad enough to move the game to Monday, Tuesday, or even another week. So that game went on as scheduled on the new time slot with Tampa Bay just flattening the Raiders. But the Seattle loss meant two things. Number one, Pittsburgh is the only undefeated team in the league. They took down the Tennessee Titans in a close nail-biter, 27-24, and as a result, they're the only unbeaten team standing. They are 6-0 for the first time for only the second time in franchise history. The only other time was 78. That was a Super Bowl year. And it also means the Packers are number one in the conference. Rodgers rebounded from that loss that bad defense caused. And he and Devontae Adams took down Houston. Rodgers, 4 touchdowns, no picks, business as usual. And Devontae had almost 200 yards receiving and a couple of scores. And we're 5-1. So we're number one in the conference, and we're going to stay up there because we play Minnesota next week. That's another given win. So we go from that to the NFC East. Yes, we have to talk about the division again. The NFC East actually kicked off Week 7, a good game between the Giants and the Eagles. Daniel Jones had that great 80-yard run, but all they talk about is the fact that he tripped at the end. I still think the run was awesome. Not even Rodgers or Lamar Jackson could do that. But in the end, he still cost them. Another fumble led to Philadelphia clinching it. They won 22-21 and took over first place in the East. And they stayed there because Dallas just fizzled in D.C. Oh my God, that team really has checked out. They really have. They only got 3 points in that game. Dalton was on his own. The line just didn't care to help him out. He got sacked and hit badly in a game that he actually underwent concussion protocol and will be out for at least next week's game. It's easy to say, well, Dak's out. This is why. But Dallas had some problems even when Dak was tearing it up. It's much easier and a bit more accurate to say the coach is the problem. But I think it even goes beyond the stupidity of Mike McCarthy. I think this team as a whole just doesn't care. I mean, how could you see care? The offensive line just literally stood around just twiddling their thumbs, and while Dalton was getting killed. And it's resulted in a team full of turmoil and just apathy. And here's how bad the NFC East is. Even with Dallas's immense apathy, They can get to first place on Sunday. But here's one good thing about the NFC. This NFC is this year though. It's a black and white division. You know the saying, fire bad, water good? In this case, it's fire bad, gasoline on fire worse. Because either one team's going to sputter less enough to win that division, or that team could end up getting a top 10 draft pick because the division's so bad. No way is an NFC East team going to be 9-7, 8-8, and get a middle of the pack pick in round one. That's not going to happen. Chances are, the 3 teams that don't win the division, they're going to get a high draft pick. They're going to get a pretty good draft pick. Last place might get a top 5 pick. So, who knows? Elsewhere, the Chiefs improved to 6-1. They destroyed Denver. They didn't really need, and the sad part is they didn't really need Mahomes or Kelsey to do it, which is kind of good for the Chiefs, but bad for fantasy owners. The Patriots got shelled by San Francisco. And Cam's pretty much worried. I think he pretty much is expecting his job to be taken away anytime soon. Though Cam really isn't the problem. That team, he's the only one doing anything. Speaking of the NFC West is a contrast to the East. It's the best division of the league. Everybody's over 500. Though, here's the thing. Though. People are saying everybody in the NFC East is going to make the playoffs. This would be true if there wasn't a log jam between us and Chicago. It pretty much looks like both of those teams are going, which means whoever finishes last in that division, their fans are going to bitch up a storm. Because whoever finishes in the bottom of the West will most likely have a much better record than whoever wins the NFC East. And that team's fan base is going to be crying, foul, 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 foul. Because it's a good chance that 9 wins, maybe 8 or 9 wins, hell, maybe 10, could be the bottom of the NFC West, while 7 or maybe 6 could be first in the East. Oh boy, if that happens, especially if that team is San Francisco, whoo, that's gonna be hell. That is. But another team that got back on track after a bad loss was Cleveland. Baker tore it up. 5 touchdown passes. 5 touchdown passes. So again, people need to stop picking on Baker. That boy's good. They focus too much on his negatives and not enough on the fact that he can actually throw a football properly. I mean, 5 touchdowns. What more do you want? He's 5-2. However, it does come with a price. Odell Beckham Jr. out for the season. Oh, man. And speaking of receivers, guess who's back in the NFL? Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is a Buccaneer. And Dez Bryant. This news just broke. Dez Bryant is a Baltimore Raven. And I mentioned Antonio Brown, his ex-Steelers teammate, is now with the Chiefs. Le'Veon Bell's with the Chiefs now. So, ooh, boy. But back to Pittsburgh, it's amazing. They got rid of those two. Those two caused a lot of draw, but those two were also pretty damn good. And they fell off. They fell off in 18 even with Brown, because Bell was out. And then the first season without those two was last year, but Ben was out for most of it. And now Ben's back, and now everything is gelling in Pittsburgh. They are winning. And so yeah, that's pretty much all that went down with the Rams beating the Bears. That was great. So the Packers, we just got to keep winning. Simple as that. Now, what is on tap for Week 8? Let me get this schedule up on my laptop. And here we go. Week 8 starts with an NFC South battle between the Panthers and the Falcons. Falcons are coming off losing in the final seconds to Detroit. My goodness, Detroit has won back-to-back games. Ooh, boy. The The Steelers are in another marquee matchup. It's their first meeting of the season against the Baltimore Ravens, and that's going to be must see. Yeah, but that's not going to be on national television. I remember there was outcry for moving that game to national television, but they haven't. The NBC game is Dallas and Philly, though that's going to be interesting too. Like I said, the Packers host the Vikings, so 6-1. Here we go. The Lions, I mentioned the Lions. They host the Colts, and if Phillip Rivers remains inaccurate, that could be 3 straight wins for Detroit. How scary is that? Browns played the first of what will be many games without OBJ against the Raiders. Titans face Cincinnati. Bills and Patriots face each other. The Broncos and the Chargers will face off. Losers in last place. But as far as the marquee matchups, the Niners face Seattle. Now the Niners are banged up again because one of their receivers, Deebo Samuel, is going to miss a couple games, and it's going to be crazy. So that's my review of week 7. I'll be back to recap the World Series whenever it ends. So enjoy the rest of this season, and until later on.